Welcome to Fun and Games Side Quests. Every episode is a different host sharing a video game they love and why they love it.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Side Quests. My name is Ben, and before we get into the game that I wanted to discuss today, let me introduce myself a little bit. I am one third of Play Along Podcast, a podcast that plays games in a book club style. Each season we will break down a video game into sections, and then we come together section by section and basically explain the plot, how we sort of resonated with it, if we enjoyed it, if we didn't enjoy it, and have a general discussion. We cover a wide range of games. We have done Disco Elysium, we've done Wind Waker, we've done Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2. At the moment of recording this, we are running up to the end of Need for Speed Heat, which has been a very interesting experience. And we also have bonus episodes that we do. So each month we might do a roundtable discussion about a game. We might do a draft episode. We did an indie game draft that was really a ton of fun and is a really good listen. There's been roundtable discussions on Borderlands 4, Expedition 33, as well as the new Pokemon Legends ZA. But with the introduction out of the way, let's get into the game I'm talking about today, which is Sunday Gold. Now, this came out in October of 2022. It was developed by BKOM Studios out of Canada and was published by Team17. It is only for Windows PC, and it is basically a point-and-click adventure game with turn-based RPG mechanics. So there are 4 main characters to talk about. Well, technically 5. I guess we'll touch on the 5th one, but the first 3 are the main trio that you play as. So you have Frank, who is essentially the leader of the group. He is this career criminal who specializes in lockpicking. He is very hot-headed, and he's kind of like a typical Cockney geezer. Then you have Sally, who is essentially the muscle of the team. She kind of specializes in these brute strength things, she's breaking down doors and stuff like that. But she is also the healer due to having a background in caring for animals. And then lastly, you have Gavin, who is stereotypical hacker. He is nervous, anxious, eccentric, I guess is a word you would use to describe him, but really fucking good at hacking. You then have the antagonist, who is a man by the name of Kenny Hogan. He is this kind of corrupt billionaire who runs this organization called Hogan Industries. And the game kind of focuses on this thing that he runs called the Kins League, which is essentially a dog racing league, but for cyber-enhanced dogs with augmentations and all kinds of nasty stuff injected into them to make them really fast and hyper-violent. And that's where I was talking about this 5th character. So Sunday Gold, who the game is named after, is one of these dogs, but it is specifically Hogan's pride and joy is Sunday Gold. So the game itself is set in this dystopian London in 2070, and there is just rampant unemployment, there's homelessness, society is collapsing as we know, and the one thing that kind of brings everybody together is this Kins League, this dog racing league. And I'm not going to go into too much of the plot because I really don't want to spoil it, but the game kind of centers around your trio, so Frank, Sally, and Gavin, basically trying to uncover the truth as to what Hogan is doing and what Hogan Industries is doing in this league. There's a lot of talk around corruption, inequality. It's almost a societal commentary as well as it is this sort of video game experience. Like I said, I don't want to go into too much of the plot because the gameplay is kind of where I found my love, and also in the style of the game, which I'll get into in a second. But gameplay wise, it's basically a point and click adventure game. However, there is a little bit of a twist to that. So the main gameplay is going around examining objects, solving puzzles, gathering items and evidence. But everything you do, even during the exploration phase, costs action points or AP. And so what happens is you'll be going around and using your AP to gather evidence And then when you end your turn, you replenish your AP as you would. But in ending your turn, the enemies then take their turn. So let's say you're in an area you shouldn't be, there's a bunch of guards. When you end your turn, those guards will then do their movement. And then what happens is, if those guards do their movement and they find you, then you enter this like turn-based combat. So I kind of hinted to this a little bit earlier, but each of the characters has their own things. So Frank is good at lock picking. Sally is all strength-based stuff. So any like breaking of doors, any kind of like breaking of fences or anything like that is going to be Sally. And Gavin is your hacker. So he's going to hack into the electric systems and stuff like that. There's a lot of resource management in the game, so you're needing to manage your ammo, manage your AP, manage your med kits and things like that. And then, like I said, when you get found by the enemies, that's when you end up in this turn-based combat system. So you do have to be really careful, because what I do remember is that I would end my turn, and if you get found before your next turn starts, you have the amount of AP left over from when you ended your turn. It hasn't replenished yet. So there were a lot of times that I got found and had like 2 AP or 1, or sometimes even none. So you really, really have to be careful in terms of where you end your turn and where the enemies are and if you're going to get discovered or not, because it all kind of does have this impact. But it adds into the like overall tension when you're doing these kind of espionage missions, which I remember really, really loving. The game also has this composure system where people will lose composure in certain situations, and it can cause things like panic, hallucinations, even like a loss of control. So you might lose control of a character for a turn, and they may shoot an ally, they may try and flee or something like that. So you also have to manage the composure during the missions as well, which kind of all feeds into what I was talking about just then. That being said, the one thing I will say is that I do remember the game being quite difficult. I do remember, I'd say like 5% maybe, but I remember like 1 or 2 puzzles where I was really, really stuck on what the answer was. They're not all as simple as they seem, and it does kind of have that like you have to do things in a certain order, which 95% of the time, like I said, is quite obvious, and you do find yourself following it quite well. But there can be moments where the game doesn't do as good of a job of explaining what you should do next as it probably should. But the other part of the game that I loved was the overall style. So the overall style of the game draws a lot of influence on comic book and graphic novel styles, those kind of hand-drawn environments, lots of bold lines, lots of shading, kind of these panels that happen and play out the cinematic scenes, like the cut scenes. There are also like I'm trying to think of a way to explain, like, you know, like the old school kind of like Batman, like bam, boom, and all of that stuff. Those will happen during certain moments, maybe when an enemy gets defeated, or if something happens and maybe you foul a mission, like maybe you foul a task you were trying to complete. But all of that kind of seriousness is set against this like really gritty, dystopic London kind of backdrop. And, you know, it's really interesting because the best way I can explain it is like if Guy Ritchie played Persona, or Disco Elysium, probably more specifically, I guess, because of the point and click style of stuff. But if he played that and was like, I'm going to make Snatch or Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, but like in this fucking cyberpunk dystopian London, that's like the best way I can explain the style of Sunday Gold. And it is just cockney as all hell, and that is kind of what drew me to it, you know. And the thing with that as well is the voice acting is very on point. Like Frank, the person who voices Frank, whose name I don't have off the top of my head, I apologize, but their voice acting was just phenomenal. It was just on point. It was so like gritty and kind of cockney, and just, it was perfect. Everything about the game kind of suits this like dystopian noir, like cockney theme that it has going, and just it kind of like puts like a bow on the gameplay and everything else that Sunday Gold has to offer. Like when I played this in 2022, it was easily my game of the year. And I really, really encourage you, if you have been a fan of Persona, if you're a fan of Disco Elysium, or even if you've wanted to try those games and you kind of like sort of like Cockney gangster movies, if you're like, if you like Snatch, if you like The Gentleman, and you've been looking to get into Persona, but you don't want to commit the time, or if Disco Elysium feels too heavy, Sunday Gold is like a really, really good entry point and is one that I highly, highly encourage you to look into. I don't really know how to finish this, so I'm just going to finish this by starting off by saying thank you to Matt for letting me come on and absolutely gush about this game and making me look back at what it was I enjoyed and how much of a great time I had playing this game. And I want to thank you for those listening, for listening to me ramble about this game for, 10 minutes or however long this is going to end up being. Like I said, if anything I've said has piqued your interest, you should absolutely go and check this game out, because it is a hidden gem and one that pretty much everybody should play, in my opinion. Happy gaming, everyone.
Hey, Nerf herders.
You sure you want to go with that?
Hey, everyone.
There we go. More inviting.
Have you ever had a movie that you really wanted to love, but something holds you back?
Or one that you did love in spite of a flaw?
Well, I'm Case Aiken.
And I'm Sam Alisea.
And on Another Pass, we sit down with cool guests to look at movies that we find fascinating.
But flawed.
And we try to imagine what could have been done when they were made to give them that little push.
We're not experts. We just believe in criticism.
Constructive criticism.
Sure.
So come take another pass at some movies with us.
And every now and then, we can celebrate movies that did it on their own, too.
You can find us at certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Pass it on.
CPOV.
certainpov.com.